and I needed help, feeling like a victim of life. I had to stop asking myself, why me? Are we going to gain that self-awareness first, or are we going to call it quits first? I wasn't always a believer of self-help. I got into self-help being a skeptic. There are three areas of relationship. There's people, possession, and thoughts. There is no relationship in life that we cannot walk away from. The question is, do we want to walk away from it?
Let's be honest. We've all had our setbacks in our personal and professional lives, right? Today, I'm really looking forward to my conversation with Jit Puru as we talk about how can we pick ourselves up after these setbacks. All right, Jit, here we are. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so can you shortly tell us, how did you get into self-development?
Well, the honest answer is I needed help. That's the honest answer. It's you go through life, and life, it's never just ups. The reality is life is a combination of ups and downs, and there's a period in my life where I went through downs where I just needed help. I needed help to pick myself up, because at that point of time it felt like the light at the end of the tunnel was just not there. It felt like every time I took a step forward, something came along and pushed me 10 steps backwards, and yeah, so it was just a bad state of mind. It's nothing. What I went through, I wouldn't say is anything different than what anybody else would go through, But that's the thing about challenges. When you're experiencing a challenge, no matter how small it may be in the eyes of others, the person who's experiencing it, for them, that's the biggest thing in the world, So yeah, I was going through a tough time and a rough period, and I needed help. And that's how I got into self-development. So I was reading books, I was attending seminars, and doing whatever that I could to pick my state of mind up, to put me back in the driver's seat of life. But when things started getting better, I realized that, self-help works. I've never told this to anyone actually before, but I wasn't always a believer of self-help. I got into self-help being a skeptic, but I was like, what else do I have to lose, right? Life's already bad. I don't have nothing to lose. So I got into it, but when life changed, that's when I became a believer, and I was like, hey, this stuff works, and that's when I wanted to make myself this medium of information. And what I mean by that is to take what I've acquired and to pass it on to the next person who may need it. Someone, who may be going through what I went through, and, rather than having more falls and trying to figure it out on their own, let me be that medium of information where I pass it on. And that's how I got into self-help.
That's so cool. So do you remember that moment where there's the shift that you start, oh, this really works?
Well, life just seemed beautiful again, At least that for me was when I knew that my state of mind was changing. Because the reality is this, right? When we change on the inside, okay, the world on the outside changes with us. Yeah, and that's a fact of things, because each and every one of us, we are our present state of mind, our present us, whatever that we say that we are, because we all have an identity, right? A self-identity. Like, I'm sure you've heard when someone says, oh, I'm just not that kind of a person. I'm not like that. I am like this. All right? This is all self-identity, but our identity is an accumulation of our past experiences, our past trauma, our past challenges, our past victories, our past beliefs. So everything that has happened to us from now to before, that means from the time before leading up to now, that shapes to who we are right now. Okay, and that makes us have certain lenses of how we see the world, So if we feel that like the world is being unfair to us, right? That's just a lens that we have put on because of our past experiences and past traumas and past challenges. And we are now looking at the world from different lenses. And that's really the difference between like an optimist and a pessimist. You know, glass half full and glass half empty. You know, the glass is the glass. The water in the glass is the same level for you and me, but our lenses is going to determine how we look at that glass. You know, and an optimist will look at that glass and say, you know what, the glass is half full, and a pessimist is going to go, the glass is half empty. Neither one is wrong. Yeah. And that's the thing, neither one of us are wrong, but our perception is based on our past experiences. You know, and for me it was just that. It was the world seemed like a terrible place, and when I invested in self-help, suddenly the world did not seem like such a bad place. You know, the light at the end of the tunnel was there, skies were clearing up again, and that's when I knew, hey, you know what? Something shifted inside, you know. And again, it may not be one event that just, wow, life's good again, because it's an accumulation, right? You know, you go through stuff, and then one day you realize that, I'm waking up in the morning and I'm actually smiling. Yeah. That's not happened in 6 months. Yeah, so that's when, you know, so yeah, for me it was this, that. And when I felt that I could take on life again, you know, and not just take on, not just survive, but to be in the driver's seat. That's liberating, that's empowering, and that's when I knew the power of self-help. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool, Jit.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of challenges. You know, you have to go through a lot, and I think, like I said, I'm no special than anyone else that's going through challenges outside. Each and every one of us, all right, the challenges that we face is real in our mind. And when you're going through challenges, when someone says, that's nothing, you know, I've been through this, you know, it actually doesn't do any help for the person that's going through that challenge, because in their mind, it's the biggest problem in the world. You know, and as people who's trying to support other people that's going through a tough time, the worst thing we can tell them is, that's nothing, and downplay it, you know, because it just takes away that notion that this person understands what I'm going through. It takes away that empathy, you know. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I mean, you said that, I mean, suddenly you saw life. It was better. It was more beautiful. I think I want to go there, but before, let's go into a moment where for you had a setback. Maybe you can share with us that moment and how it shaped you as a person.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the story that what shaped me as a person right now, has got a lot to do with my journey into self-help, you know. And what really happened at that point of time was that I was with Singapore Airlines. I was a flight attendant for my entire youth, actually, my teens. Not say teens, for my 20s, sorry. My entire 20s I was a flight attendant with Singapore Airlines. You know, so life was good, life was nice. You know, you're young, you're traveling the world. It's a great job to be in. You know, and I say this till today. You know, when you're young, I think traveling, being a flight attendant, it's like the best thing to do, and I loved it. But you know, it reached a point when I was 30, and I was thinking, you know, what's next for me? You know, I've been in the airlines for about seven and a half years. You know, and I wanted more. I didn't know what more meant, but I wanted more. I knew that my time in the airlines was, you know, it's okay, you know, and I don't want to leave at this point where I'm feeling good about it, rather than reach a point where I'm just dreading it, you know, and that's too late. I wanted to leave. So the problem was this: I wanted more, but I didn't know what more meant, but I still left. I still took that step out and I left, and that's kind of where I think things went downhill for a little bit, you know. So life gets very tough when you don't know what your destination is. You know, and for me it was just that I wanted more, but I didn't know what more meant, and that simply means there's a lot of discovery involved, you know. But it was rough, because 1 year into trying to find my calling, I didn't know what it was, you know, and that took a toll. Financially, it took a toll. Emotionally, it took a toll, and it also took a toll on relationships. So it was at that point of time where I found myself where I wasn't earning, I wasn't happy, and neither was the partner that I was with, and that led to a divorce, and you know, it just sent everything that much more worse. You know, it just went down, And that was one of the most challenging times in my life back then. But that put me on that path to where I am today, because I was just unhappy every day, feeling like a victim of life. Like, I am a product of life's circumstances. And like I said, it's something that a lot of people go through. It's not a special story, because a lot of people go through this on a daily basis. But when you're experiencing it, it feels like the end of the world.
Yeah.
It feels like the world is against you. Where it's not fair. There's so many more people who are experiencing a nice, happy life. Why can't I be that person? Why is this happening to me? So you become very self-centered in that way, and that was me. So it reached a point where I had to stop asking myself, why me? Because I realized that why me was not answering anything. Because the more I ask myself, why me? The only thing why me does is that it takes me back to what happened, and when I'm focusing on what happened, it just brings up more negative emotions, and over time the negative emotions just intensifies, So something had to change, and for me I think that was a change where I think I just got tired of feeling sorry for myself, and the question changed. What triggered that question change, I don't know. Like I said, it could be just I just had enough. Enough was enough, and the question changed, and I told myself, why me is irrelevant. Right? Why me is irrelevant, because whatever that's happened has already happened. It's not going to change anything, and that's the thing about living in the present and accepting the present for what it is.
So I think it's interesting to bring it back to the topic of our conversation.
Yeah.
So when someone goes through a negative emotion or goes through a setback in life, what are the common reactions or behaviors that normal people go through?
Well, I think normal, it really depends on what the definition of normal is, right? Because someone who is extremely positive in life, for them normal means move on. Okay, so this happened, what do I do next? And that's normal for them, But someone who has built this habit over the years of being in a victim's mindset, And I think it comes down to that, Have you trained yourself to be a victim of circumstances, or have you trained yourself to be a solution finder? Because within us there are two modes of thinking, there are two modes of operations. We are either operating at cause or operating at effect. Okay, operating at effect simply means we are victims of circumstances. Everything that happens to us is out of our control. And if we are operating at effect, then we are always operating as a victim, which means the questions that we're asking is, why me? Why is this happening? This is out of my hands. This is not in my control. No choice. There's nothing I can do to make things better. And that's the other thing. We have to realize that whenever we say the words no choice, we have actually just made a choice to accept that there's no choice. Because there's always a choice to do something, and there's always a choice to make life better for ourselves. Right? So that's the habit that we've created for ourselves, and that's normal for someone who is operating at effect. And then there's people who operate at cause. Cause meaning not blaming yourself for everything that's happened, because yes, you may be the cause of what has happened to you in the present. That means, your present reality may be a product of what you did in the past. So you caused it, but at the same time, you may not have caused it. For example, when COVID hit us a few years ago, a lot of our livelihood was affected. We didn't set out to, not work for a year and be cooked up at home for a year, but it happened. It's external circumstances, right? It happened. So someone who's operating at cause accepts that where we are in the present may or may not be our doing, but I'm going to be the cause of what happens next. I'm going to be the cause of how my future is going to be. So someone who's operating at cause, they are the ones who want to shape their future. They are the ones who are asking, what must I do next? They are the ones who are accepting reality for what it is, and they want to move forward. And someone who's operating at cause is operating from a mindset of a solution finder. And for someone who's operating at cause, when you're hit with the negative circumstances, what's normal for them is, okay, how do I move forward? Right? So to answer your question, like what could be some negative cycles? So I'm just assuming that's for people who are still operating at effect. You know, and someone who's operating at effect normally, all right, if something challenging hits, you know, it's going to take a toll on them emotionally, because there's going to be a lot of negative emotions that are being triggered. You know, emotions such as, you know, maybe grief, maybe loss, maybe frustration, anger, doubt, self-worth, depending on what the situation is. A lot of times, whenever we're experiencing challenging times, it simply means that life has not gone in accordance to how we had expected it to go.
Yeah.
If I have an expectation of how something should have worked out, and when reality doesn't match that expectation, that hits us like, oh, it didn't go. That's can be perceived as even failure. Like, I failed to achieve my goal, you know, and it's like, and this is that. So whenever we are experiencing failure, what often comes out is just that. It's like, I feel, so there's failure, the event, and failure, the emotion. You know, and it's two different things, because failure simply means an unsuccessful attempt. That's the definition of failure. Success can be defined as the accomplishment of a goal or purpose. Failure's definition is an unsuccessful attempt. You know, that means you didn't achieve that goal. And unsuccessful attempts, in my opinion, simply means you're now given this opportunity to try again with a better strategy to enhance your probability of success. You know, and that's because I've trained myself over the years to look at failure as an unsuccessful attempt. But if you're looking at failure as the end of the world, then you're going to react as if it's the end of the world. You know? So it triggers a lot of emotions within us. And a lot of times it's also grief. You know, people talk about grief. The reality is, grief is not just tied with death. You know, grief can be tied to anything that's lost.
Yeah.
You know, and we can go through grief as well. And grief always starts with things like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, before we eventually reach to acceptance. And life only gets better when we reach that stage of acceptance. Yeah.
Well, so that's really interesting. But normally, what do you see some common mistakes that people, when they are in that journey, what are some of the common mistakes that people do in that journey?
Keeping everything bottled in.
Yeah.
What it does, it just intensifies. You know, think about a Coke bottle, all right? And if you put a Mentos in, you know, we've all seen that experiments on YouTube and how it just explodes like a volcano, right? So imagine you release a Mentos and then you put a cap on it. What's going to happen? That whole bottle is going to explode in ways which it shouldn't explode. You know, and yeah, it's an implosion that leads to an explosion, and that's what happened to us as well. If we don't talk about it and we just keep it all to ourselves, you know, we will eventually implode. Because remember, emotions affect our thoughts, our language, our actions, and our behavior. That's the power of emotions. Everything that we do on the external is a reflection of how we are feeling inside. When we're feeling good, everything else is good. When we're not feeling good, it's going to show. And that's what's going to happen. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that someone can do that's going through a tough time is not talking to someone about it. You know, keeping it all inside. You know, which then comes to the second question: who do you talk to? Because, you know, you can also talk to the wrong people. You know, that's the second mistake. Where, okay, you know what? I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not talking to the right people. You know, because if you are going through a tough time and you're talking about it to a group of people who are also negative, guess what the conversation is going to be about? It's going to be about, you know, who's having a worse off day. You know, it's going to be like, oh, you know what, it's unfair. You know, this shouldn't have happened to you. You know, you're a good person. It just spirals down. So it's, in essence, it still keeps going back to why me, you know, and that's why talking to the right person, it's important. Like needing to talk about it, it's good, but you need to also know who can you talk to about it, you know, and that's where, you know, of course, ideally, talk to a professional. You know, that's the best thing someone can do. If you can afford it, talk to a professional, talk to a counselor, talk to a mental health professional, because again, they will know how to guide the conversation, to take you from why me to what must I do next, because you need that shift, right? And that's what's going to happen. But if you can't afford it, which is also a reality for a lot of people, okay, so what's going to be available for you then? Are there support groups in your neighborhood, within your vicinity, which you can now join and be around the support group, so that you are now around not just people who are experiencing or have experienced what you have experienced, and that allows you to not feel alone. Because that's the other thing, right? When you're going through a tough time, you often feel like it's only happening to you. You feel all alone. There's this overwhelming sense of aloneness, and it's not loneliness, it's aloneness, and when you are in a support group with other people who are going through or have gone through, it takes away that feeling that it's you have to do this alone, that support is there, okay? But being in a support group, again, there's always someone who's leading the conversation, which means if the conversation gets more towards why me, they're going to lead it back to, okay, what must we do next? What must we do next? All right. So support groups could be a good thing. Okay, but if there isn't, or if you're not ready to be in support groups yet, hey, self-help books. Really, self-help books, invest in self-help books. I shared earlier just now, I couldn't afford seminars at that time. I really wanted to attend Tony Robbins. I couldn't afford it, at that time. But then when I asked myself, what must I do next? I was like, you know what, if I can't go to Tony Robbins, I'm going to bring Tony Robbins to me. And how do I do that? I get his book. I go to a bookstore, invest $20, buy a book. And when I was there, so I remember I bought Awaken the Giant Within, and I bought a few other self-help books, because when I'm there, and I just started making it a habit to read every day. Because again, when you're reading, what's happening with self-help books is this: it's shifting why me to what must I do next. YouTube videos are great, TikTok videos are great. These days there's so much of valuable stuff, content out there. And we just got to feed ourselves with knowledge, with this empowering information that's going to help create shifts. Podcasts are great, and that's why I love what we are doing right here. Because end of the day, the way I look at it is this, I once had this big goal that I want to change the world, all right? But I've also realized that I can't change the world on my own, And I'm also at this place now where, I actually don't even need to change the world, all right? I just need to change that one person who may be in need of that little bit of encouragement, that little bit of support, that little bit of knowledge, that little bit of tools that's going to take them one step towards, feeling more liberated with life, and that's just it.
But I think that's what I'm thinking of, listening to what you're saying, is like, it looks like there's a need for a lot of self-awareness, like self-awareness for what are the triggers, what am I feeling, what am I thinking, what are my thoughts, what are my emotions. So how can someone cultivate a sense of self-awareness during that period, that journey of a setback?
Practice. That's it. It's a conscious effort. It really is a conscious effort, because our unconscious process will take us one way, because that's habitual, right? Human beings, we are all creatures of habit. Everything that we do is something that we have learned how to do, and the more we do something, the better we get at it. Hence the saying, practice makes perfect, all right? Problem with practice makes perfect is you practice doing the wrong things, you make perfect doing the wrong things, and that's where strategy comes into play, all right? So for example, like one simple self-coaching tool, right, is to ask ourselves questions. And basically self-coaching is about asking ourselves questions, but it has to start with, let's just say, this directive that, okay, every time I'm feeling negative, all right, these are 3 questions I'm going to ask myself, okay? First, what am I feeling? If I'm feeling down, what am I feeling? Am I feeling frustrated? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling depressed? And we have to clearly identify what we are feeling, all right? Because else, we may be feeling one thing, but going about life thinking we're feeling something else, and that's not going to do us any favor. So that must be the first question. Like, okay, what am I feeling? Okay. Second question, what led me to feel this way? Because we also want to know what the triggers are, but then it's got to be accompanied straight away with, okay, now that I know what led me to feel this way, what must I do next? Okay, what must I do next? Which is the third question. And that's it, because what must I do next clearly means you have to now trigger some positive emotions to shift your mind back. Okay, and if you don't know what must you do next, then you've got to go with the follow-up question to, okay, what are some things that can help me? Where can I get the information of what can I do next? Is it books? Is it videos? Is it podcasts? Is it talking to people? All right. So in essence, right, let's just say you have never done anything in the realm of self-help before, but you want to make it a conscious habit, then you need to have these questions, okay? And my advice is, write these questions down somewhere where you can refer it to immediately, and that's how you train self-awareness and creating new habits. So it could be a piece of paper that, you print it out and you have it in your book or in your iPad or even as a wallpaper on your phone.
Yeah. So
why not? Because you look at your phone all the time, right? And you're like, okay, so when I'm feeling negative, straight away I look at the phone, is it? But, okay, having that self-awareness that I'm feeling negative now. That's the tricky part, because I could be deep in anger and I don't even realize I'm angry.
Tell us more about that.
That's just, again, so that's, like I said, it's the tricky thing. So for example, right, I'm feeling down. I'm feeling like really down, but I don't even realize that I'm feeling down. I've gone deep into my regular pattern where, okay, I'm down. I've closed myself out to the world. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm just dwelling and I'm dwelling and I'm dwelling. And at this point of time, right, self-awareness can be really hard, because it can happen maybe a few hours down the road and then you're like, oh, you know what, I don't want to feel this way, And this is the tricky part. So this is something that we have to consciously train ourselves on a daily basis. Like, how am I feeling? So not just during the times when we are feeling down, even the times when we are feeling good, because it's always easier to have self-awareness when we're feeling good. And it's a conscious habit where we have to acknowledge what we are feeling. So like, for example, if we're having this interview right now and I'm having a ball of a time right now. I love this conversation that we're having, and I have to consciously remind myself, like, even when I'm talking to you, right, in my mind, it's like, I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's a nice conversation. I'm feeling good, So this way, I'm actually training myself to acknowledge my emotions at all times, which means then, over time, with repetition, it's also going to happen for the emotions that I'm not, the negative emotions. So that whenever I'm feeling angry, it's like immediately I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling frustrated. It's not how I want to feel. So what must I do to counter this frustration? Because the reality is, do I still get frustrated? Of course I do get frustrated. I'm human. Do I get angry at certain things? Of course I do. We are human. There's no such thing as never feeling a negative emotion ever again. I think there are ways and means to do it. Probably yogis do this. Spiritual masters, they've reached this level of enlightenment where they are able to do this. Spiritual enlightenment. But I think for most of us, we're not there yet. Because that's also making a lot of different life changes and choices to take them to that place. And a lot of us are not there yet, which means we are going to experience, no matter how much of emotional mastery that we have in our life, we are still going to experience downtimes every now and again, So it's not about never feeling frustrated, never feeling angry, never feeling down. It's about having that awareness that, okay, I am feeling frustrated now, I am feeling angry now, I am feeling demotivated now, I'm feeling sad now. What must I do next? So that I feel differently.
So I really like, so what you're saying is about when you bring a question to the moment, you are always bringing yourself to the present moment, to understand what you're feeling now. And that's what you're saying, that you can practice through self-awareness. Is about that. You bring like, what am I feeling now?
Yes.
What am I thinking now?
So while we may be a product of our past, okay, but we cannot be prisoners of our future in that sense, So our past have shaped us to where we are right now, but our actions in the present will shape our future. So that's it. And that's what being in the present means. And mindfulness is a great example of that. Bringing the mind back to the present, where we are not stuck in the past. The past is important. It's a great teacher, but we've got to bring ourselves back so that we don't dwell in the past. We come back and then we live in the present, both physically and mentally.
Wow.
Yeah, so
good stuff.
I mean, it's a little bit deeper in that sense, because this is where it gets a bit more, into the realm of spirituality a little bit. It's a bit deeper, and this is how we create long-term habits, long-term. So because what I shared earlier just now was a lot of quick fixes. Quick fixes are important. People often say that, quick fix, it doesn't change because it's temporary. It's like Band-Aid therapy. But you think about it, right? If you fall, okay, and if you graze yourself and there's some inflammation on your knees or your ankles, right? When a first aider comes, the first thing the first aider is going to do is patch up what they can see, all right? Which means bandage has to be applied, antiseptic creams have to be applied. If it's the swelling is there, they've got to maybe put on a walking boot or a splint to make sure that the pressure is not there, because it's about fixing what can be seen first to alleviate the pain. But once that is done, and then comes the next step, which is, okay, let's maybe go and do an X-ray to see if anything is broken, an MRI to see if there's any ligament damage. And then it's about, okay, if something else is happening under the hood, okay, what's the recovery for that? Rehab, physiotherapy, and that's all for long-term strength building, so that in the event something happens again, your conditioning is much stronger, and that's the long term. So to me, quick fixes are important, because without quick fixes, how do you even shift to put yourself in this mode for the long-term help, and long-term comes into principles, and I mean, it's about understanding certain principles about life, and embodying those principles, and ensuring that these principles now become a way of life.
You spoke about the quick fix, which is important. If someone now is going through a tough moment, had a setback, and is in the spiral of negative emotions, what are the quick things that a person can do in order to at least to breathe a little bit?
For those out there, okay, who are not going through a tough time, right, start building a habit of self-awareness right now, which means read self-help books, make it a habit, attend certain self-development seminars when you're feeling good, because if you start training these habits, especially the habit of self-awareness, when you're feeling positive, then when you feel negative, it's going to be easy to have that self-awareness. But if you've never trained yourself and you're suddenly hit with this problem and you're deep into it, trust me, there's no quick fix for that, because it has to start with self-awareness. You can only make changes in your life, when you have awareness of where you're at and where you want to be. If I don't even know where I'm at, and if I don't know where I want to be, then what need is there to do anything different? And then you can get people coming from the outside and saying, and that's advice. They can only give you advice. But if you don't have that awareness, that advice is just white noise, and that's, so self-awareness is something that trials and tribulations can lead you to self-awareness, and that was me, I didn't have self-awareness, but I reached a point where I was just tired. I was tired, I was drained, and I no longer wanted to feel the way I was feeling. And that led me to really question myself, So we have it within us. We have it, but it's just that, how long is it going to take, and how much of trials and tribulations can we go through, because Are we going to gain that self-awareness first, or are we going to call it quits first? You know, because either one can happen, right?
Yeah.
Some people maybe it just may be too much, and it hasn't reached that point where they've got to this point where they are aware of how they're feeling and where they want to be, and they want to call it quits, because for them enough is enough. I'm done. You know, and it's a shame. You know? But it's reality. At the same time, you know, some people go through so much and it reaches a point where, you know what, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to feel like this instead. So it's a natural development of self-awareness. And we all have that.
Yeah.
But why put it to the test? That's my question. You know? We have the tools to gain self-awareness and do it when you're feeling good. So when you're on top of the world, when life is going smooth, and if you don't have a habit of investing in self-development, do it now. It's the best time.
Yeah, but so for you, what would be the 3 advices that you would give for someone that had a setback in their life and wants to come out of it?
Okay. First, accept the present for what it is. Okay. That's the first thing. That's my first advice. Accept the present for what it is. You can't change the present. No matter how much you want to change the present, you cannot change the present. Okay? So accept the present for what it is. Second, breathe. Just breathe. Okay? Breathe in and breathe out. Okay? And that itself will regulate a lot of emotions from within. You know, and it's tied to acceptance as well. You know, you just gotta breathe. Right? Once you're done with this, okay, then I would say, really look at where you want to be. You know, put yourself in positive environments. Right? Put yourself in positive environments, because when you're going through a tough time, it can be tough. And the last thing you need is to be in an environment where you're not supported, people don't understand, you know, and it just doesn't make you feel good. Okay, you want to be in an environment where even on the days where you don't believe in yourself, you're around people who believe in you. You know, so it's very important to change your environment. You know, and we got to do that, because our environment affects us more than we realize it. You know, because we have formed a lot of attachments to everything that is around us. You know, because human beings are about relationships. You know, we all have relationships in our life. You know, and there are 3 areas of relationship. There's people, possession, and thoughts. Right? And we all have relationships with people, possessions, and thoughts. So people doesn't necessarily mean romantic relationships, because it's friends, it's colleagues, it's business partners, it's clients, it's acquaintances, or it could just be that stranger in the street. You know, that's a relationship with people. Possessions are the things that we have in life. You know, and what's our relationship with the things that we have in life? You know, and money is a thing that we have in life as well. So that's a relationship as well. And then there's thoughts. You know, the thoughts that we have in our mind, is in ourselves, that's a relationship that we have. And all relationships, okay, can either be empowering or toxic. You know, people, possession, thoughts. You know, it could be empowering or it could be toxic. You know, and there's no relationship in this life that we cannot walk away from. People, possession, thoughts. There is no relationship in life that we cannot walk away from. The question is, do we want to walk away from it? And our environment, okay, feeds us with these relationships. Yeah. And when we are going through a tough time, honestly, sometimes one of the best things that we can do is just take ourselves out of our day-to-day environment for a little bit. Just go away. Go somewhere new, you know. Jump on a plane, go somewhere new, somewhere where you've never been, around people that you've never seen, you know, cultures that you've never experienced, and just take a break. You know, it could be a couple of weeks, it could be a month, but just move away from what you have grown comfortable with. Because you can also grow comfortable with toxic relationships, because it has defined you, right? It's who you are, you know. And that's it. And unless you move away from your environment, you know, you won't have self-awareness of what's toxic and what's empowering anyway. And that's the other thing. So if you were to ask me, how can someone identify what's toxic in their life? Okay, Take yourself out of your current environment and put yourself in a new environment. After a few weeks, you will realize immediately what's toxic in your normal environment. Because sometimes you can only see what's bad for you when you're not around what's bad for you. And then you'll be like, okay, all right, so life can be like this. Okay, I can feel this way, you know. And then you start realizing, okay, then why do I not feel this way when I'm back home? And then you will identify that, oh, wow, you know.
Okay, so what I got from you is the first thing is about breathe, stay present, right? The second is accept the present for what it is. The third is about just what next? What can I do next? And the last is about question the relationships that you have with people, possessions, and thoughts.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Jit, thank you so much for coming.
You're most welcome.
It was a pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure as well. Thank you so much for having me.